As a clinical psychotherapist, one of the things I've noticed with working with men and women is the differences in the way they've been socialized. Men have been socialized not to open up a lot, kind of keep your cards close to your chest. Don't talk about your feelings. If you're feeling pity or you're having a hard time, kind of suck it in and go the extra mile no matter what. The problem is if you hold stuff in and you don't talk to your partner, you end up many times being misrepresented, misunderstood, and your partner assumes things about you that aren't true. When I see couples come together, it always amazes me that when a woman is in love with a man, she will basically, if the relationship is struggling, she will assume a lot of the problem because women really love being in relationships. Women live relationships much differently than men do. Now, one of the things I see, it's a constant problem, is when a woman dates and falls in love with a guy who is basically insecure. The problem with that is people flippantly talk about insecure all the time, but they don't really understand how it looks in a relationship. And many times men don't want to admit when they're feeling insecure because they see it as a weakness rather than an ability, a strength that they could have if they were able to be vulnerable with their feeling. So I'm going to tell you up front what insecurity looks like from a man in a relationship, because I'm hoping that when you see these signs, if your man doesn't bring it up, that maybe you can start the conversation. And the first thing I'm going to say is that many times they'll criticize you. Now that sounds like an oxymoron. Women kind of grew up with that. If he likes you, he's going to hit you. But in real relationships, men do that as a way of making themselves feel superior. Insecure men do that. But that is also a classic sign of abuse. So if you see that early in your relationship, I would advise you to discontinue the relationship. And if you don't, that you at least bring it up and talk about it so you can process it and work together on it. Secondly, you notice he's a total doormat around you. Many times men will allow themselves to be taken advantage of, not only by you, but by others if they have a deep insecurity about themselves. And I would bring it up because otherwise what's going to end up happening is you won't give him the respect he deserves in the relationship. Next, he brags about himself a lot. Now, in honesty, a lot of people do that right now. Insecure people do that significantly more. And when you're in love or dating a guy who does that a lot, you should bring it up. Don't just let that go under the rug and just say flippantly, he's insecure, and kind of go on with your life. Because during that time, he's misrepresenting himself, and that will turn into resentment if you don't come back and address it early. And since he probably won't, I would encourage you to do that. If he's judgmental of other women, this is kind of a sneaky one because in a way it makes women feel better. Oh, he's judgmental of other women, like he would never like them. But sometimes what he's doing is he's judgmental because in his past that he never really healed, he may have been dissed or made fun of or dumped by a person like that. And so his way of protecting himself, of making himself feel better, is to now criticize or judge other women who may be really beautiful. You'll see this if you go, wow, she's really beautiful, and he says something derogatory. It's one thing if he says, well, you're more pretty, but it's another if he's derogatory and actually judges her unfairly. Keep an eye open for that. I think if he starts acting like he's having full-blown panic attacks, or if he's real shaky or unsteady when he's with you, like he takes your hand and he's shaky. Many people do this during first dating. Men especially will do this. It's somewhat endearing, but I think it's important that if it continues to happen and you've gone on at least 4 dates with him, then that's a sign that you should bring that up and say, you notice, I've noticed that you get shaky around me, or you seem unsettled or nervous. Is there something I do that causes this? And then hopefully you'll bridge the way so that he can open up, he feels safe to talk about it. Most of the time when men don't talk about things, they're not sure how you're going to take it, and they feel insecure about it saying it. Like it seems like they're putting themselves before you weak. And it's very important that men understand it's that weakness that women need to listen to, because therein lies your strength. I think if he says things like he's not good enough for you, I've seen women and men actually say that, and sometimes they're really true. If he says that a lot to you, I would start asking him about that. Like, what is he seeing? He may be playing back negative tapes about himself or things he heard growing up from his parents that make him feel an underlying criticism, or that he's not good enough, or he's having intense guilt. These are all things that you can talk about and work on together. But the whole idea is that you don't take over his work. He still has to work these issues out on his own. And I think if you start feeling smothered by him, if he's too much, too strong, too needy, that is a sign. And I would not stay in a relationship like that, because it's showing me a relationship like that he wouldn't be emotionally mature enough to love me. If he needs to cling on to you for his emotional support, that is not going to be a healthy relationship when the two of you go further into it. And I think lastly, he tries to get you to compliment him. If he says things like, I wore this for you, or I did my hair like this for you. Many times I'll see this in couples who are newly dating, but once again, these things are more for if you've been with this guy for a while and he's still fishing for compliments, there's some reassurance he needs deeply within himself, and a therapist is going to work best for him with this issue. I do think if you guys are really tight and you really love each other, then going to a therapist together, especially if you're thinking of getting married, would be ideal for you. I hope this helps you, and let's start listening and really talking together. We have the time now. We should take advantage of it.